Characters in LEGO Star Wars love to flip. Whether it's a Jedi's double jump, a dodging ship, or just simply the existence of Yoda, they all do it, which I understand, flipping is really cool. But is it necessary? Which brings us to this video. Can you beat LEGO Star Wars The Complete Saga without doing a single flip? We're going to kick things off with Episode 1, Chapter 1. And with the early levels being pretty straightforward, this is a great chance for me to establish the rules and what sort of methods we'll be utilising during this run. First off, let's talk about the flips themselves. There's a few different types, but essentially anytime the character I'm controlling does a complete 360 around a vertical axis, it's a flip. For example, the most common one would be when a Jedi double jumps, but there are also backflips, front rolls, and I'm also including any flips that can be done in a ship. But unfortunately, we can't stop every character from flipping. As you'll see throughout the video, the AI will be doing a lot of flips that I can't control. So the only thing we are concerning ourselves with is making sure that whatever character I'm in control of doesn't flip as a result of my inputs. Now, while I can't stop the AI from doing flips, I can take advantage of it, because the only obstacle I have to face in the first level is this wall here, which normally requires doing a flip to get over. But instead, we can gaslight the AI into thinking we're about to jump over so that he will try and follow us and jump over himself. From here, I can just switch characters so that the other will also jump over and finish our first level. Level 2 introduces Jar Jar Binks, a character who can jump much higher than any other, but of course, that's only if he does it while doing a flip. And this whole level is designed to take advantage of his extra height by putting much higher jumps into it. But there's a little trick with Jar Jar where if you jump straight after landing from another jump, you still get the height of the double jump without doing the flip. And we can just use this feature for any jump throughout the level. Level 3 has us playing as Padme and Captain Panaka, two characters that can't flip, which means we can play through this level as normal. We do meet up with Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan about halfway through, but still all the obstacles are designed for the blaster characters, so there's no reason to flip here. 1-4 is a similar situation where we are in a pod racer the entire time. There's no way to flip in here even by accident, so we can move straight on to 1-5, which is a bit of a long one and features every character we've played as up until now. There are quite a few puzzles to tackle, but due to there being some characters who can't flip, that pretty much guarantees that there will be a way to avoid doing so. To be honest, the hardest obstacle this level was this spiral staircase. I chose to go up as Padme because, as you can see behind me, Jedi find it really hard to make it up without flipping. And there's also this jump which is a bit tight, but we can just about make it with a single jump. Which brings us to the final part of this level where we have to rescue 6 Naboo soldiers. Half of them can be saved no problem, but then these 2 guards are up where only Jedi can reach them and are just out of reach of a single jump. This is obviously intended to make you flip, but I noticed that the force glow around the droid was showing up with just a regular jump, which meant I could free both of them from where I was stood. And the final guy, under normal circumstances, also needed a double jump to reach. But again, we can bypass this if we utilize 2-player controls. Using my controller and keyboard at the same time, I can position one character on this box and then use the force with my other character to lift him up and get him onto the platform, freeing the final guard and allowing us to move on to the final mission of Episode 1. 1-6 sees Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan facing off against Darth Maul. It was all going well with no reason to flip anywhere, until we found ourselves in a nightmarish room that in a normal playthrough would take roughly 5 flips to get through. I was in for a rough ride, but if I take it one jump at a time, I might just be able to make it out. For the first jump, I managed to trick the AI into jumping up for me, but I got a bit confused on how I would manage to keep him up there, until I remembered the 2-player trick I'd used earlier, which can work for us if I utilize it a bit differently. If I lock in the second player before he jumps back down, I can drop out of my original character, who will then become AI himself and jump up on his own because he likes to be close to me. This little trick can be used for the next jump as well, but because there's no platform underneath, it's a lot harder to convince the AI to jump up. And the times that I could, I got stuck in this cycle where no matter how fast I was locking in the second player, it wouldn't register until his feet were back on the ground next to me. And I was genuinely starting to think the run was over at this point. This room was an absolute killer, but I still sat here for about 20 more minutes just trying to brute force past it, and eventually I realised that if I do 2 jumps after one another, the AI won't jump back down straight away since it still thinks I'm on the same level as him, giving me just enough time to lock in player 2. One step closer, but far from finished. Next up, we had another similar jump, but the AI was becoming even wiser to my manipulation tactics and was refusing to jump up for me. To convince him now, I would have to fully commit to my jump. I did it. That actually worked. I can't believe I'm still going. I was so close to the end of the room now, but there was still one more jump, even harder than all of them before it. I tried baiting him as much as I could, but he just wasn't budging. And with every failed attempt came its own challenge of just getting back to the starting point of the jump. Without the AI cooperating, there is simply no other way to progress. So I just kept pushing, and eventually the AI jumped the entire gap all the way to the next platform. But of course, there was still the issue of him jumping straight back. I was spamming the button to try and lock player 2 in, but he just wouldn't until he was back down on my screen. I wasn't entirely sure of the mechanics, but the only thing I could theorize is that the player will only lock in if the character is currently visible on the screen. And this theory was further solidified when I managed to lock him up there when I accidentally flipped. Doing this with a flip, of course, isn't allowed, but there was finally some form of solution I could picture. After a few more trial and errors, I tried something a bit more unconventional. You can control the camera slightly in this game, and in order to keep it as high as possible, I grabbed whatever I had lying around and used it to hold my right stick up. And then while controlling the character with one hand, and my other hand ready to lock in player 2, somehow this happened. It worked! That actually worked. It actually worked. Yeah, I was pretty broken at this point, and we were only the first episode in. This is genuinely how I had my controller. And yes, measuring tape was what was closest to me at the time, and no, you don't need to ask any questions why. Anyways, at long last, with 2 more jumps, we had escaped the room of hell and could continue onwards. Every jump in this room could just about be made, and the final showdown with Darth Maul didn't require any flipping of any kind. It's just a shame we have no control over the cutscenes. Get him, Obi-Wan. Get him. Stop flipping though. Stop flipping. No need to flip there. And no need to flip there. With an entire episode behind me and some extremely difficult obstacles defeated, I was feeling hopeful for the first time that we might actually find a way to beat this game. The first level of episode 2 has us inside another ship, except unlike the pod racer, this one can flip, and it does. Quite a lot. There's no doubt this level is possible without flipping, it's more of a skill issue whether or not you can get through the entire level without doing so. We saw a lot of resets with this level, but once I got the hang of the mechanics, flipping became easy to avoid and we made it through to 2-2. This was one of the easier levels. There was hardly even a need to jump, let alone do any fancy flips. I spent more time collecting mini-kits than anything. The only part that could have caused an issue was outside when he was blowing holes in the bridge, but with our R4 unit we could clear these no problem. And there wasn't much movement required for the fight against Django either, until the very end where we had a fun little chase, but we got him and moved on to the next level. 2-3 doesn't have any required flips, but it does have some of the worst level design I feel like. It's been a long time since I played this game, but I still got stuck here for longer than I want to admit because I just couldn't find a way past this wall, completely unaware that you can just walk straight through. Surely I'm not the only person that's done this. Moving on from that though, Anakin is the only character here that can flip, so all puzzles and jumps are made for everyone to get past without having to flip. Part 4 of episode 2 is the big Jedi battle in the Colosseum, which is completely flat. There was no risk of flipping here until I discovered a flip I wasn't aware of until now. Turns out if you do a full attack combo while right in front of an enemy, your character will find the space to do a flip. But now aware of this, I reset the level and beat it by just fighting a bit more carefully. 2-5 is another ship flying level where again, as long as we avoid doing sharp U-turns or pressing either of the dodge buttons, we can clear this no problem. 2-6 however was quite a big problem. At this point in the game, I had come to realize that any level with a character that can't double jump or flip will usually never require you to do so. But when the level has 2 Jedi, like back in 1-6 for example, there will always be at least 1 double jump required. And that's no different in this one. It was going fine and I was just about managing jumps without flipping until the very last one, which is just out of reach of a normal jump. There is no two ways about this. The game wants to show off how cool the Jedi are. The game is the one that puts us in these situations where our final resort is to do an insanely awesome backflip up to this platform. But I say if the game is so hell-bent on breaking this run, I guess I'll just have to break the game in return. And when I say me, I mean the dedicated speedrun community who have put countless hours and years into breaking this game wide open so that they can finish it as fast as possible, but also unknowingly helped me continue on this stupid challenge. So what do we have to do? This trick is called Dooku Skip and it involves going out of bounds, walking underneath Dooku and triggering the loading zone in the room behind him that normally gets shut off. I tried this and failed many times, but knowing it was possible, it was only a matter of time, and after enough study and practice, I pushed myself out of bounds, ran underneath Count Dooku through the door, spawned player 2 in and walked into the loading zone, skipping straight into the Dooku boss fight. It's a really simple fight, no need to flip at all, but all of a sudden... No, please, anyone but him. Right, Yoda, we are avoiding you at all costs. You just stay hobbling behind me. No need for any fancy tricks. And by just pretending like Yoda doesn't exist, we can complete the fight and finish episode 2. Moving over to Revenge of the Sith, we start off with a bit of a break compared to the previous level with a flying one that's impossible to flip in. 3-2, however, is another double Jedi mission, and we know what that means by now. Lots of double jumps and lots of flips. And this is one of the hardest ones to figure out so far. The only way to progress through this level was up these 2 jumps that were really high. And yes, I tried the speedrun technique as well, but that also requires a flip, so we're back to this tube. There's no beating around the bush here. The only way we move on is to get the height of a double jump, which requires us to flip. Once I accepted this, I started messing around with the mechanics of the flip themselves, and found out that you can actually cancel the backflip animation but still gain the height of one if you attack mid-jump. It's a bit trickier to pull off than just a regular backflip, so even though I couldn't get up myself, I was getting enough height that the AI was now jumping up, and I could lock player 2 in, getting us both up halfway. From here, all it took was one simple jump to trigger the AI to make the jump for us, and then one more small jump out of the hole, finally getting past the seemingly impossible obstacle, while also unlocking new techniques which will surely help us greatly for the remainder of this challenge. We picked up R2 and Palpatine later on in this level, so while it was quite long, there wasn't any more double jumps or flips required. Level 3 is a battle against General Grievous and Obi-Wan Kenobi, but Captain Cody is also here, which means there are no difficult jumps in this level. A Yoda level. With fear controlling my body, I made my way through the level using Chewbacca at all means necessary, and thankfully Chewbacca's presence is enough to not require Yoda for the entire level, and we can ship him off into space and just hope we never see him again. Fuck. 2 Jedis and one of them is Yoda, and we're at the Jedi Temple. I continued forward full of anxiety, knowing that there may be a mandatory flip around every corner, and that's when we entered the archive room. A series of 3 jumping puzzles to progress, and yes, every single jump has to be a flip. Thankfully, I had my new backflip cancel tech, which while extremely difficult to pull off, did allow me to get one of the 3 switches, and I thought this would work for all 3, but at some point while attempting the second switch, I realized that it may not be possible after all. That's because the 3rd switch has jumps that are not only high, but also long, and my backflip tech only allows me to go straight up. So I had to completely scrap that, but I still had my final result. I would once again need to enlist the help of the speedrunners. And all I'm going to say is I'm very lucky this game has been absolutely torn apart by this community, because there is yet another way to skip this entire section. If we jump up onto this section of the door, which luckily doesn't require a flip, and position our camera as far away from Yoda as possible, jumping up will push Yoda through the door and we can lock him in as player 2, where if we then walk back towards the door, it will trigger the loading zone to the end of the level. The duel on Mustafar is yet another level with 2 Jedis, which includes many jumps. The AI of course flips every chance it can get, but this segment can just about be done with only single jumps. In fact, nearly the entire level can be done with single jumps. It isn't until we get to the end of this lava pool where our first double jump is required, and the only way through this will be with a backflip cancel, but this one's a bit tricky because it has to be a very precise maneuver. If I take too long, I'll sink into the lava. If I stand too far away, I'll miss the jump, and if I get too close, then I fall off. But if I stand right in the sweet spot, I can make it up the ledge where I'm instantly met with another backflip cancel. And just before the lava could singe off our toes, we hopped the last few jumps, chopped Anakin in half, and finally finished off the prequels, which meant we were halfway through and we could finally head into the original episodes, which in my head meant we should have an easier time because there's less Jedi now, right? So less people who can flip. Well, it does indeed start off strong with a level that has no characters that can double jump, and we can just run straight through. And again, all jumps in 4-2 can be done without flipping. Any ones that would have required it have a grappling hook for Luke since he's not a Jedi yet, so what reason does he have to flip? But don't worry, I'm sure he'll undergo his Jedi training and be flipping about in no time. Surprisingly, there was this one section that needed a flip from Ben, but I found a way around this by just jumping up the wall next to it. And now Luke has a lightsaber. So it is indeed only a matter of time before he starts flipping out. Since we still have the droids though, there isn't really any elevation in the ground at all, and when there is, there's usually a ramp up anyway since the droids can't jump. And it really is quite a stark difference already from the prequel levels because there genuinely isn't as many Jedi characters, so there isn't really any regular jumps in these levels, let alone double jumps that need a flip. Level 4 is pretty much exactly the same, but an interesting thing to point out is while there is no Jedi just yet, Luke and Han can actually double jump and do a flip, but there's no extra height gain, so to my knowledge there is no reason mechanically for this feature to be in the game, which in my mind makes these officially the most useless flips in the entire game. So while keeping everyone's feet on the ground, we rescue Leia and move on to 4-5. We can all hop out the garbage compactor and make our way through the Death Star. And we're all blaster characters at this point, so this puzzle room, along with all other jumps, just have grappling hooks for everyone to use. And the final level for episode 4 takes place in an X-Wing, which yes, can flip if we backtrack too quick or dodge, but it's pretty easy to avoid all of that. That is until we get to the very end of the mission inside of this trench. Because we're unable to use the dodge mechanic, it makes it really difficult to get through the trench without dying. And if we die, then I lose my purple plasma balls, which I need at least one of to finish the level. Now there is a place right at the beginning of the trench where I can get more. The issue is there's no room to turn around here, meaning if I don't make it through the trench first time with at least one plasma ball, I'll be forced to flip to get another. So I had to restart this mission, and this time went into the trench with more balls, and even though I still died, by flying slower I managed to pick up 2 of them and get to the end. Definitely the easiest episode I've had so far. Episode 5 takes us straight back into another spaceship, this time in a snowspeeder. There's a lot of back and forth picking up bombs and blowing stuff up, but it's all wide open space, so there's no worry of flipping. I mean, I did, but after restarting a couple times, we got the no flip run eventually. And there isn't much to say about 5-2 either, since once again we have no characters that can jump high. 5-3 is once again another flying mission in the Millennium Falcon this time. It starts off with a big open space battle, which is easy enough, but the Millennium Falcon has a really annoying feature that might be a bit controversial. Let me start by saying this challenge is basically impossible to do without dying. You can't use the dodge features, and usually you have to fly quite slow, so I learned to accept early on that I would be dying a lot. Which is fine until you're in the Millennium Falcon, because when you die in this ship, you start flipping in all kinds of directions. It's not anything I have control over, and I think it doesn't really ruin the integrity of the run since it's not giving me an advantage in any way. It's just a bit of an eyesore to see a flip after avoiding them for so long. And despite of all that though, we can move on to 5-4. Another dreaded level, as the King of Flips has come out of hiding to teach Luke how he too can master the Force. But of course, before learning any of that pointless Jedi stuff, the very first thing we're taught is how to flip. For the most part though, we don't have to use it, and we don't have to use Yoda either. He just flips about the map while we find our own way through, and even when there are times it looks like we might need to flip, we still have R2-D2 to save the day. There are a few more tight jumps here and there, but nothing too troubling until we run into Darth Vader. As you can see, there are a few elevated areas here that Vader likes to jump to. We can just force up to this first one, but the second ledge is a lot higher and does require jumping. I had to utilize 2-player controls here again, using the Force with Yoda to move the blocks while Luke jumps up one at a time. But then there's still this last ledge which is just slightly too high, and just as I was about to think we were stuck again, I noticed moving these blocks can take us much closer to the top ledge. So while Yoda is moving it, I can ride on top and just as it reaches its peak, jump off onto the ledge and start beating up Darth Vader again, until we beat him and finish the rest of the level with no more flips needed. Moving on though, because we are starting to slowly creep towards the finish line, R2's presence once again really helps us out with this level. We have another little fight with Darth Vader, and while he's doing plenty of flips, not a single one of them is necessary, as is the same with all other obstacles in this level since R2 needs to be able to follow me. And we can move on to the final level of episode 5, which since our only Jedi is currently dangling beneath the city, there are no requirements to flip in this level, and we can move straight on to episode 6, which means there are just 6 levels left. And overall, I would say the originals have been far easier to overcome than the prequels, which is why I was very surprised to find that episode 6 would by far be the most difficult episode to overcome so far. Here's how it went. 6-1 presumably starts off easy, playing only as Princess Leia and Chewbacca. But Luke shows up eventually, this time in his full Jedi attire, which unfortunately means there is forced flipping in this level. You see, our favourite droids C-3PO and R2 are once again captured, and the only way to get them out is to double jump into their cages and bring them down. Why is that the solution is beyond me, but it is. There is of course a way to do this by not flipping with our backflip cancel tech, but a more true to the challenge version would once again be another out of bounds speedrun skip, which I tried for a really long time, but I'll admit my patience wasn't quite what it was at the start, and I couldn't quite get the hang of this one, so I just opted for the backflip cancel and continued on. And since we have the droids now, we all get ramps. Nice. No flips. We rescue Han, fight this thing whose name I don't know, and finish the level. The second level is no better. In fact, this one probably takes the award for the most difficult jump in the entire game. And still now, it feels entirely luck-based that I managed to finish this level. It starts off completely fine, but then there is this one single jump which honestly just felt so impossible to get past. We have to get up onto this ledge to continue forward. The issue is it's really high, too high in fact for our usual backflip cancel. The only way up there is to force this flap out and double jump from here onto the ledge. But of course we're not allowed to do that. It's too far to jump normally and there is absolutely no other way past this point. We either get up without flipping or we lose. I racked my brain around this for longer than any other level. I was getting close enough to the point that I didn't want to give up, but no matter what, I just couldn't find a way up. But eventually I created a plan where I could stand just on the edge of this flap without needing to force it up every time, and from here see if I could backflip cancel just enough to get onto the ledge. There just wasn't enough distance, so for the first time I tried a front flip cancel. This was much more promising. I could get a lot more distance and soon I got it. I was up on the ledge, but something about it didn't feel right, so I rewatched the jump in slow motion. Unlike a backflip cancel, which very clearly shows the character not doing a flip, this animation cuts straight to the plunge attack, and since we need a lot of distance, at least half of the flip is completed before we cancel the animation. All this to say, even though it was seemingly the only way to get up the ledge, I wasn't happy with it and carried on looking for a different way. But I had no strategy. I tried some more things like trying to push the character with the camera screen by moving player 2 further away, which didn't seem to help. But then I moved player 2 towards the other side, and I have no clue if this is what changed the tide or if it genuinely was just a miracle, but I managed to jump up twice against the side of the wall in quick succession, which gave me enough height to get up, somehow without flipping. I won't pretend to know why or how it worked. If I had to guess, I'd say the curvature of the ship's hitbox isn't quite perfect and there might have been a pixel ledge that allowed me to jump twice. I don't know, but I'm up now and we can finally move on. And in the next segment we get our droids back for the rest of the level, which means a free pass, and we can move on to 6-3. 6-3 is a bit of an interesting one. We start off with a few basic puzzles that we can easily navigate, but then we have to pilot these ships in a never-ending loop while we take out stormtroopers. Problem is, these ships spawn facing the wrong way, and I didn't even know this at first. I went around a good few times before I realized that I should be flying the other way. The only issue with that is the only way to turn around is by doing a flip. So I restarted the level to see if there's any way to turn the ships around before we get in them. And, well, I did, but I didn't see it happen. While I was fiddling around with them, player 2 jumped into his ship and I walked away slightly. And I'll show all of this with no cuts, but I paused the game to research the level a bit, and when I came back, the AI had somehow turned his vehicle around for me. So I just swapped characters and we were good to go. That's just one part of it though. While fighting the troopers, if you hit them enough times, they slow down and end up behind you. The only way to get back behind them without flipping is if we crash and die. So this segment is possible, if not quite tedious to do so. 6-4 is a very welcome surprise because look at all these characters that can't flip. I can just play this level like a normal playthrough. That came with the realization that I've been giving the Jedi a lot of slack for their pointless flipping antics, but I'm the one who's 14 hours deep into a video idea I don't think anyone has ever asked for, where the outcome won't have any effect on mine or anyone else's lives, no matter what it is. But I'm sure if you got this far, you're on the edge of your seat waiting to find out if I finish or not, and there's only 2 levels left, so here we go. 6-5 is extremely short and sweet, surprisingly. We team up with Darth Vader to take down Darth Sidious. There's no worrying jumps or anything here really, so there we have it, just 1 level away from finishing. And when I saw that this mission was in the Millennium Falcon, I was ready to celebrate straight away. I really thought it would be another easy fly-through mission, but I couldn't have been more wrong. At first, it is just a big open battle, which makes it really easy to not flip. But the next segment is this long tunnel which we can't turn around in without flipping, which is fine, but at the end of the tunnel, we need 4 plasma balls to shoot down the door. The problem is, I can only carry 3 at a time. So even if I make it through the tunnel with all 3, I'd still have to go back and pick another one, which means I would have to flip. But hope is not lost, because there is a way to hold twice as many balls by calling... But hope is not lost, because there is a way to hold twice as many balls by calling in player 2. It's a solution, but it's not quite good enough since it's still practically impossible to make it through without dying and losing some of our ammo. I actually found it better if we go through slowly since it's the only way we can actually pick up every ball possible, and then also when we inevitably die, we can recover at least some of the lost balls. But this still wasn't working. I really thought it was over. I thought I'd wasted my time, but then on one attempt when I called player 2 in, he still had a plasma ball. I finally knew what I had to do. We creep towards the refill station, picked up 3 balls and dropped him out as quickly as possible. I then picked 3 more up with the Millennium Falcon and raced towards the door, where I managed to shoot down 2 of the targets before running out of ammo. But then I brought player 2 back, who still had all 3 of his balls, and shot the remaining 2, moving on to the next segment. And this part was extremely kind, as it had enough space to turn around without flipping at the refill station. So with a lot of back and forth, the next door went down and we moved forward to this circular section, which again had plenty of room for us to spin around. So finally, as we blow up the Death Star, we have to race away from the explosion, going forward the entire time until finally LEGO Star Wars The Complete Saga beaten without doing a single flip. And I will be sleeping very well tonight knowing that the burning question, which I know all of you had, has finally been answered. And if you have any more burning questions about any game, if you subscribe, I might just answer it one day.